She spoke to her grandmother in Mandarin. The next day, she was fired, but no one expected the reason why. It started with a phone call, not a scene, not an argument, not a mistake, just a simple call, 30 seconds. A few soft-spoken words in a language many around her didn't recognize, and by the next morning, Danielle Harper was out of a job. It was a Thursday, about 2:30 in the afternoon. The lunch crowd at Juniper and Ash had thinned, leaving behind the quiet clinking of glasses and the low hum of ambient music. Juniper and Ash wasn't just a restaurant, it was a status symbol. A high-end fusion spot tucked in the heart of Santa Monica, where every plate looked like art, every server moved with military precision, and reservations felt like invitations to a secret society. People waited 2 weeks for a 6:45 p.m. slot on a Tuesday. Danielle stood near the bar, polishing an already gleaming tray. She wore her uniform, a crisp black button-up, pressed apron, neat black slacks, like armor. For nearly 3 years, this place had been her second home, not because she loved the food or the clientele, but because she was good at her job, exceptionally good, the kind of good that went unnoticed because it was effortless. Quick hands, clear eyes, perfect timing. Always polite, never fake. She greeted guests with warmth, not performance. Regulars remembered her name. The staff had a nickname for her, The Wall, because nothing shook her. Not rude customers, not broken dishes, not loud demands. She absorbed it all with calm professionalism. But that day, something shifted. Her phone buzzed. One vibration. She glanced down. It was Popo, her grandmother, calling from Taiwan. That was unusual. Her grandmother didn't make casual calls. It was birthdays or emergencies. Without hesitation, Danielle stepped behind the service wall, the quiet space between the wine rack and the espresso machine, and answered. Her tone changed, soft, gentle, loving. She spoke in Mandarin, asked how her grandmother was feeling, mentioned a doctor's visit, a possible mix-up with a medication. The conversation lasted no more than half a minute. Then she tucked the phone away, adjusted her apron, and went back to clearing a table. To her, it was nothing, a moment of care in the middle of a workday, but someone had been watching. Seated in the VIP section at table 7 was Charles Remington III, a man who didn't just eat at the restaurant, he invested in it. He was a local power broker, a tech investor, a man who expected to be remembered and revered. Danielle had waited on him at least 15 times. Same drink, same table, same odd little detail. 2 ice cubes in his water, never 3. He liked routine. He liked control. He liked people who didn't surprise him. As Danielle walked past him, he looked up, not in recognition, not in greeting, but with something else in his eyes, something that flickered and then vanished. Suspicion, maybe even disgust. It lasted a fraction of a second. Enough to notice, but easy to dismiss. Danielle did just that. She had no idea it would be the last shift she'd ever work there. The next morning, she was called into the office. No prior complaints, no documented issues. Her manager, Kendra, barely made eye contact. The explanation was vague. Something about policy alignment and professional expectations. Danielle didn't argue. She knew what this was. She just didn't yet understand why. And that's what makes this story different. Danielle Harper was 27. She wasn't flashy. She didn't try to stand out. She knew how to blend into high-end environments without becoming invisible. 5 days a week, she arrived early, tied her hair in a low puff, wore little makeup, and got the job done. No gossip, no drama, no complaints. After work, she returned to her 1-bedroom apartment off Pico Boulevard, rent-controlled, quiet, filled with green plants she spoke to like friends. Her laptop held dozens of unfinished poems. She called her grandmother every Sunday, sometimes more, She was raised by that woman, Popo, after her parents died in a car crash when Danielle was just 7. They moved to Taiwan, where Danielle grew up on green onion pancakes, soap operas, and discipline wrapped in deep love. Her grandmother taught her Mandarin alongside everything else: respect, resilience, and how to carry herself with quiet strength. When she moved back to the States as a teenager, Mandarin stayed with her. It became the language of her dreams, her private thoughts, and her prayers. But in Santa Monica, none of that mattered. People saw a young black woman working in a luxury restaurant and assumed that she was local, that she spoke only English, that she was just here for the paycheck. Danielle never corrected them. It was easier to stay quiet, smile, and keep moving. Once a customer overheard her speaking to a friend from El Salvador and said, "Wow, I didn't know you spoke Spanish." Danielle had replied gently, "That was Mandarin." The man blinked like he'd just seen something impossible. Inside the restaurant, her manager Kendra ran a tight ship. She was the kind of leader who smiled with her mouth, not her eyes. Former hostess, now the gatekeeper of perfection. Danielle wasn't praised, promoted, or even thanked, but she was relied on, quietly, constantly. She trained the new hires, picked up extra shifts without complaint, and never got in the way. Her closest colleague was Milo, a half-Filipino busser who'd worked there nearly a decade. They weren't loud friends, but solid ones. They shared late-night shift meals and unspoken moments of understanding. Both of them had learned how to make themselves small in spaces that demanded polish without personality. So when Danielle lost her job, it wasn't about breaking a rule. It was about breaking character, at least in the eyes of someone who had decided who she was supposed to be. She didn't raise her voice. She didn't confront anyone. All she did was speak to her grandmother in the only language that ever made her feel fully herself, and that was enough for someone with power to decide she didn't belong. But that's not the end of her story, not even close. She answered a call in Mandarin. He called her a spy. The next day, she was erased. In places like Juniper and Ash, excellence wasn't always enough, not if you weren't what they expected. Danielle Harper had worked there for years. Perfect record, no complaints, no drama. But in a place where silence and polish were prized more than identity or dignity, sometimes just being seen was the problem. You ever feel like we gotta wear invisible uniforms under these uniforms? That's what Milo once asked her while folding silverware behind the bar. Danielle had just smiled and nodded. Like being two people at once, she said. One they see, one they don't. She didn't carry bitterness. That wasn't her way. She had seen too much real pain to waste energy on pettiness. Her focus was simple: show up, do the job, send money home to her grandmother in Taiwan, and one day, maybe, just maybe, attend culinary school and open a place of her own. She had dreams, quiet ones, tucked between double shifts and dollar store notebooks. As for Charles Remington III, she didn't think about him. Just another wealthy man with an expensive watch and a cold stare, always with a new woman on his arm, always talking down to staff, always tipping exactly 15% like it was charity. But that Thursday was different. The rain had kept most of the regulars away. It was quiet. 2 tables, that's it. One couple locked in a prenup argument. The other, Charles, alone, sipping whiskey, staring at the rain like it had personally offended him. Danielle didn't notice him watching. Her phone buzzed. Popo. That alone was enough to make her heart jump. Her grandmother never called during work hours unless something was wrong. Danielle stepped just behind the service wall, a small space tucked beside the espresso machine, and answered softly in Mandarin. Her voice wasn't loud. She wasn't complaining, gossiping, or joking. She was just listening. Her grandmother's blood pressure meds had gotten mixed up at the pharmacy. Danielle reassured her. Drink water, rest, she'd call again soon. Her voice was soft, calm, like a lullaby in another language. Then she tucked the phone away, walked back onto the floor, and headed to a guest who had asked for sparkling water. She didn't see Charles Remington watching her, but he saw everything. From his table, the VIP table, he had a clear line of sight. Leaning back, arms crossed, whiskey untouched, he watched her. And something in his eyes wasn't just cold, it was calculating. Danielle came to his table a few minutes later, routine as always. "Would you like another drink, Mr. Remington?" He didn't answer right away, just stared at her, measured her. Then he spoke, slow, biting. "Didn't know this place hired spies?" Danielle blinked. "Excuse me? You speak Chinese now?" he said. "Yes, I was speaking to my grandmother." He scoffed. "Sure you were." And then, as if it were a joke, only he found funny, he leaned in just slightly. "If you're gonna have secret conversations during work, maybe make them in a language people actually understand." Danielle stood still, stunned, not because she didn't know what to say, but because she couldn't believe he actually said it. "I stepped off the floor," she replied, steady. "And it was a personal call. I'm sorry if it disturbed you." He didn't respond, just waved her off like she was an insect. Unimportant. Replaceable. She walked away, not because she was afraid, but because she refused to give that kind of person more of her peace. Milo had seen the whole thing, from behind the bar, napkin in hand, his face unreadable. When Danielle passed, he mouthed, "What was that about?" She shook her head. Nothing worth repeating. But the air had changed. It was like someone had turned off the heat in the room. Danielle finished her shift in silence. Remington didn't say another word, just typed something on his phone, signed his check, and left without a glance. When her shift ended, Milo caught her by the lockers. "That was weird, Dee," he said. "The way he looked at you, like you were speaking some kind of alien code." Danielle zipped up her hoodie. "People get weird when they can't label you. You think he's gonna complain?" She shrugged. "Let him." She didn't say it like a dare. She said it like a truth. Let him complain. Let him lie. She knew she had done nothing wrong. That night, Danielle cooked herself dinner, called her grandmother back. They laughed about something small, a funny neighbor, a too salty soup. Popo asked about the weather in California. Danielle asked if she needed anything from the market in Taipei. They said goodnight. Danielle went to bed early, slept fine, until the next morning. She wasn't on the schedule. Her name, missing. No explanation. She thought it was a mistake, a scheduling error. Maybe someone forgot to update the system. But as she walked toward the office, she saw Kendra through the slightly open door, sitting behind her desk, a manila folder in front of her, eyes darting, as if she'd been rehearsing what to say. Danielle knocked once, then stepped inside. She was fired for speaking Mandarin. But what happened next? No one at that restaurant saw it coming. Danielle knocked lightly on the door frame. "Hey," she said, voice calm but unsure. "I noticed I wasn't on the schedule." Kendra didn't look up. "Can you come in for a second?" Danielle stepped inside. The door clicked shut behind her, and with it, something inside her shifted. This wasn't a scheduling mistake. This wasn't a mix-up. This was something deeper, colder. She sat across from Kendra, hands resting on her legs, back straight. She didn't feel nervous, not yet, but the tension in the room was like walking into fog. You couldn't see what was coming, but you knew it was there. Kendra cleared her throat, reached for a folder like it was a shield. "So," she began, "I wanted to have this conversation face to face, because I respect you." Danielle blinked once. Red flag. That phrase only shows up when something bad is coming. "Okay," she said. Kendra shifted uncomfortably, pretending to look busy with the folder, which Danielle noticed was empty. We've been reviewing some concerns brought up about your conduct during yesterday's shift. Danielle's expression didn't change, but her mind sharpened. Conduct? She repeated. Kendra nodded stiffly. Yes, a guest expressed discomfort with how you handled yourself, specifically a phone call during service hours. Danielle's voice remained even. I wasn't on the floor. I was behind the service wall. It was a personal call. Quick. Nothing inappropriate. I understand, Kendra said, nodding, though her face said otherwise. It's not just about the call. It's about how it was perceived. Concerns were raised about professionalism, communication style, brand image. Danielle tilted her head slightly. Because I spoke another language? That landed. Kendra finally looked her in the eye, and that's when Danielle saw it. Guilt, fear, hesitation. The moment where someone wants to lie, but can't quite find the words. It's complicated, Kendra said. Some guests get uncomfortable when things feel unfamiliar. Danielle's voice was quiet, but firm. So I'm being let go because someone didn't like hearing Mandarin. In a restaurant that serves Sichuan pork belly and Thai curry? Kendra flinched like she'd been slapped. It's not personal, Danielle. You've been a great worker. But this is about maintaining a certain standard. And there it was, the ache in Danielle's chest. Not rage, not tears. Just a deep, quiet weight. That specific kind of heartbreak that doesn't need screaming. Just silence. The kind that comes from realizing that someone looked at you, knew the truth, and still chose convenience over courage. This came from Charles, didn't it? She asked. Kendra didn't answer at first. Then finally, he's a major investor. You know how these things go. Danielle inhaled slowly through her nose, steadying herself. She didn't shout. She didn't cry. She just said, You could have defended me. You could have told him I did nothing wrong. I have a job too, Kendra whispered. I don't make the big decisions. Danielle stood, straightened her shoulders. You don't have to pretend you respect me, she said. Just give me the paperwork. Kendra reached into a drawer and handed her a final paycheck and a printed letter that read, Failure to meet brand expectations. The words were in soft gray font, almost like they didn't want to be noticed. Danielle folded the paper without reading the rest. When she walked out of the office, Milo was waiting by the lockers. One look at her face, and he knew. They really did it? He asked. Danielle nodded. Because of that phone call. I guess Mandarin's a threat now. Milo leaned back against the wall, arms crossed, eyes on the ceiling like he was trying not to explode. They're not even hiding it anymore, he muttered. He didn't like hearing you speak something he couldn't understand, and instead of checking him, they cut you loose. Danielle didn't answer right away. Her hands were shaking slightly. People think this kind of thing is always loud, she said softly, that it wears hoods, screams slurs, but most of the time, it shows up in offices, behind closed doors, with words like image and comfort, and it tells you without saying it exactly where it thinks you belong. She took off her apron, folded it carefully, like it still deserved respect, and laid it on the bench. You sure you don't want to fight this? Milo asked. We could talk to HR, go public, say something. Danielle thought for a moment. There was fire in her chest, but her heart was tired. I need a day, she said, just to breathe. She stepped outside. The California sun was bright, too bright, like the world hadn't gotten the message that something unfair had just happened. She walked to her car slowly, sat behind the wheel, and just sat. No music, no engine, just stillness. Then she pulled out her phone, texted Popo, I got fired today. I'll call you later. Love you. Then she scrolled through her gallery, found a photo of her and her grandmother from last winter. They were in the kitchen, making dumplings, laughing about something Danielle couldn't even remember now. She stared at that photo until her breathing slowed. But what Danielle didn't know, what no one at Juniper and Ash knew, was that the story wasn't over. Not even close, because sometimes injustice whispers, but sometimes it echoes. And this time, people were about to hear it. She was fired for speaking Mandarin. Now the whole country was watching. At first, it just felt stupid and unfair. The kind of unfair that doesn't make you angry right away, just exhausted. The kind of unfair that sinks into your bones and makes you question reality. But Milo couldn't stay quiet. That same afternoon, still in his apron, still shaken by what he'd witnessed, he logged onto a private Facebook group for hospitality workers in LA. No names, no restaurant, just a short paragraph. A co-worker of mine got fired yesterday, not for being late, not for breaking rules, not for being rude. She took a 30-second phone call from her grandmother, in Mandarin, at a restaurant that serves Asian fusion. The guest didn't like it. Now she's gone. Think about that. He didn't expect much, but by nightfall, his post had already been screenshot, reposted, and shared across multiple public pages. And by the time Danielle had turned off her phone for the night, it was already gaining momentum. Fast. The comments came in by the hundreds. That's disgusting. So they're afraid of anything they can't control? This happened to my cousin. Different language, same story. Then someone guessed the restaurant. Then someone confirmed it. By the next day, Juniper and Ash was trending for all the wrong reasons. Photos of the menu were everywhere. So were scathing Yelp reviews, TikToks calling out hypocrisy, and even a clip of Charles Remington III giving a TED-style talk about innovation in tech. Someone shared it with the caption, "This the guy who gets women fired for speaking Mandarin to their grandma." Danielle's phone wouldn't stop buzzing. Journalists, activists, strangers. Hundreds of messages poured in, some offering support, some advice, and a few conspiracy theories so wild they actually made her laugh. But Danielle didn't reply. Not yet. She needed to breathe first. Meanwhile, the restaurant was falling apart. Milo called her that night. His voice was low, half-whispered, half on edge. "They're in full panic mode," he said. "Management's freaking out, trying to make us sign NDAs." Danielle sat up. NDAs? For what? They say it's to protect proprietary information. But come on, they're scared we'll talk. Too late for that, though. This thing's afire now. Danielle was quiet. She stared at her ceiling, unsure what to say. "I didn't ask for any of this." "I know," Milo said. "But you didn't do anything wrong either." "You think I should say something?" Milo paused. "I think you should do whatever feels right. But just know, people are listening now." That next morning, Danielle sat at her kitchen table in sweatpants and a hoodie, hands hovering over the keyboard. What she wrote wasn't dramatic. It wasn't angry. It was just the truth. "My name is Danielle. Last week, I was fired from a restaurant in Santa Monica after a customer complained about me speaking Mandarin to my grandmother on the phone. I wasn't late. I wasn't unprofessional. I wasn't rude. I was just speaking to someone I love in a language that's part of me. That's all it took to lose my job. If you've ever been made to feel small because of who you are, how you speak, or where you come from, I see you." She hit post. 12 hours later, it had over 40,000 likes. Podcasts reached out. Local news stations covered the story. Advocacy groups reposted it. First, Asian American organizations. Then, Black media outlets. The overlap sparked a conversation bigger than Danielle had ever imagined. Language, identity, power, fear. People from across the country shared their stories of being told to speak English, of being mocked for an accent, of being let go for not fitting the culture. Danielle read as many as she could. Some made her cry, some made her angry. But mostly, they made her feel something she hadn't felt in a long time, not alone. That night, Popo called. "I saw the news," she said in Mandarin. "Are you okay?" Danielle smiled, tears in her eyes. "I'm okay," she said, tired, but okay. "You always had a strong voice," Popo said, "even when you were small." Danielle laughed softly. It took losing my job to remember it. But the story still wasn't over. Not until Danielle stood face to face with the people who tried to erase her voice in the first place. 3 days after her post went viral, she received an email from a name she didn't recognize. Subject line: "Request for conversation. Juniper and Ash response." The message was short, formal, cold. "Danielle, we are aware of recent attention regarding your departure from Juniper and Ash. We would like to discuss a resolution and ensure both sides are heard. Please let us know if you are open to a brief meeting. J. Roth, Legal Counsel." Danielle didn't reply. Not immediately. She reread the email 3 times, then closed her laptop and went for a walk. The beach was only 20 minutes away, and the sound of the waves helped her think. She knew what they wanted. Not justice, not truth, silence. They wanted her to go away. But something inside Danielle had shifted. She wasn't afraid anymore. The next day, she agreed to the meeting. They met in a sterile office suite near Westwood. Roth was in a gray suit, hair perfect, smile rehearsed. His voice sounded like elevator music, soft, slow, too smooth to trust. Kendra was there too, sitting on the edge of her chair, hands folded like she was praying it would all end quietly. Danielle didn't dress up. Jeans, plain white t-shirt. No makeup, no armor, just her and her voice. Roth started. "Let me be clear," he said. "We want to offer a formal apology and a financial settlement in exchange for closure on this issue." Danielle raised an eyebrow. "Closure?" she asked. Roth nodded. "Yes. Discretion? Agreement not to pursue further public comment. In other words, hush money." Danielle leaned back in her chair. She'd come prepared to listen, but not to back down, because this time she had an audience. Danielle didn't just lose her job, she reclaimed her voice and set something powerful in motion. Danielle tilted her head. "Closure for who?" she asked. Roth smoothed his tie, choosing his words like they were part of a negotiation manual. "We understand emotions are high," he said carefully, "but our client has received threats. The restaurant's reputation is being damaged." Danielle leaned forward, eyes locked on his. "You're worried about a restaurant's reputation? I lost my income, my peace of mind, over a 30-second phone call." "We're not here to debate the details," Roth said, shifting in his seat. Danielle glanced at Kendra. "You knew it was wrong, didn't you?" Kendra looked down. "I followed every rule," Danielle continued. "I showed up early, stayed late, never caused trouble. But one rich man felt uncomfortable because I spoke a language he didn't understand, and suddenly, I was the problem." Roth cleared his throat. "We are prepared to offer 3 months of severance and a formal statement of apology." Danielle let the silence hang. She didn't blink, didn't move, just stared until Roth finally looked away. Then, calmly, she said, "I want the apology to be public, no NDA. I want you to admit that I was let go because someone didn't like hearing me speak my own language. That's the only way we move forward. Otherwise, we don't have a deal." Roth hesitated. Kendra finally spoke. Her voice cracked a little. "We'll issue a statement," she said. "You didn't do anything wrong. I should have said something. I just didn't want to lose my job." Danielle's voice was steady. "I did." That afternoon, Juniper and Ash posted a public statement across all platforms. We acknowledge that the termination of Danielle Harper was handled in a way that does not reflect our values of diversity, respect, and inclusion. Speaking another language, especially one tied to family and heritage, should never be grounds for dismissal. We sincerely apologize to Danielle and to the broader community. We are reviewing our internal policies and staff training moving forward. The comments rolled in fast. Some applauded the apology. Others called it performative. Some said it wasn't enough. Danielle didn't care. She had spoken the truth, and now it lived outside of her. A week later, she sat on a bench with Milo overlooking the ocean, wind in her hair, soda in her hand. "You did it," he said. Danielle shrugged. "I didn't do it to win." "No," Milo said. "You did it so they'd finally see." She smiled, the kind of smile that comes after a storm. "People always talk about finding your voice," she said, "like it's some hidden treasure, but I didn't lose mine. I just got used to lowering it." "They made you feel like it was too loud," Milo said. She nodded. "But it never was." Danielle didn't just get fired. She got free. And freedom has a sound. It sounds like your own language, spoken without fear, in front of anyone, no matter who's watching. She never returned to the restaurant world, not because she couldn't, but because she refused to shrink herself again. A month after the incident, she used part of her settlement to enroll in a part-time culinary program at a local college. Nothing flashy. No Instagram-worthy kitchens, just sharp knives, clean stainless steel, and people who actually listened. She started a blog too. At first, just recipes. Her grandmother's dishes, scallion pancakes, soy braised eggs, beef noodle soup. But then came stories about language, about being black and multilingual, about being treated like a contradiction, when all she was herself. The blog took off. People wrote in from everywhere. A woman from Oakland said she stopped speaking Spanish at work years ago because her coworkers felt weird about it. A high schooler in Fresno played Danielle's tweet during a class presentation on identity. People from other countries commented too, offering support, sharing their own stories, grateful, seen. Danielle never asked to become a symbol. But sometimes life hands you the mic, and this time, she didn't hand it back. She still calls Popo every few days, still in Mandarin. Only now she answers with the phone on speaker, not hiding, not whispering, not lowering herself to fit anyone else's comfort. Because here's what Danielle learned. Silence doesn't protect you. It just makes it easier for others to erase you, quietly. Danielle didn't start a protest. She didn't break windows. She didn't need to. All she did was speak. And for some people, that was the loudest, most dangerous thing she could have done. But she didn't speak to fight. She spoke to exist. And that was more than enough. So, if you've ever been told to tone it down, to blend in, to keep it professional, to speak only when spoken to stay quiet so others can stay comfortable, remember this. You don't owe anyone your silence, not to keep your job, not to keep the peace, not to make yourself easier to understand. Your story matters. Your voice matters. Your language matters. So speak. Speak loudly. Speak honestly. Speak in the language your heart knows best. Because when you do, you're not just telling your story, you're giving someone else the courage to tell theirs. And truth spreads fast when we stop pretending we're alone.